All right, we're back on Coach to Coach Convo with Coach Kurt Hines, who I'm convinced is the most followed high school football coach in America on Twitter, which is pretty cool. He's a great follow, a lot of great content that he puts out. Back to talk about a new project that you got going on, but first, just remind our listeners just about you and your background.
Yeah, Scott, thank you so much for having me back on again. I should have asked this off camera, but are you sharing this video or audio or both?
Both.
Oh, good. Fantastic. So when I found out modeling wasn't going to work for me, I decided to go into teaching and coaching. so your audience that watches this can clearly see I'm kidding. I am married to my best friend, my wife, Jillian, for 30 years. We have 4 now adult children, 2 grandsons. I am a strong, proud Christian. I love our country. And that's first and foremost for me is just I know who I am and whose I am. As far as the how I pay the bills or try to pay the bills, I've taught elementary school for 29 years now. I teach 4th grade, and I've coached high school football going on my 27th year now and love absolutely everything about it. It's a blessing to be able to do what you love and to be able to keep your head above water and still pay the bills. So I was talking to some of our young men at football. We had a team Bible study after practice this Wednesday. And I said something to them about the effect of most of my family and friends, and this is true, make more money than I do. But I feel like the richest man alive. Just be able to get up in the morning and just be passionate about what you do is it's a blessing.
Well, I will tell you, I taught 4th grade for 2 years.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Taught 2nd grade for 2 years. And if you've done it for 29 years, you're going straight to heaven. Like there's a bullet train taking you to heaven because that's tough stuff right there. So you've had a book just come out this week. Tell us about that, your motivation for doing it, and a little bit about how that process has gone.
Yeah, it's been exciting. It's been a little less than 48 hours. The book was released. It's now on my website and on Amazon. And it was a labor of love in that people through the Twitter world for the longest time would say, "Oh, you got to write a book. You got to write a book." And I always appreciated that and took it as a compliment. But I thought, even though I teach elementary school and I love reading, I'm like, I'm not going to write a book. And it kept being brought up over and over. Then finally, family and friends very close to me said, you should do it. And Scott, as you and I were talking very briefly offline, you had mentioned what I think was a perfect phrase, the imposter syndrome. For your listeners, I love who I am. I love my life. I feel confident in who I am. At the same time, I think most of us have certain insecurities and doubts and things about ourselves that whether we wish we did differently or better, or we just know who we are, So when I thought, write a book, who's going to want to buy my book? And for years, I joked around about saying, all right, I'm going to sell 3 copies, my wife, my father, and my mother. Well, my father passed away 2 years ago, so God rest his soul. So I thought, all right, I'm down to 2 copies. My mother has lost her eyesight, and I'm not putting the book out in Braille. So I'm like, all right, I'm down to 1 copy. But what happened was the book essentially, it's titled Called to Empower. And for me, that's near and dear because I think all of us have got to, at some point in our lives, ask ourselves, why are we here? Like, what is our purpose? Why do we get up in the morning? Why are we the husbands or fathers or fill in the blank that we are? What motivates us to get up and be who we are? And I truly feel like I and most people, even though I don't think most people have realized it yet, have been called to empower. If we can live a life that blesses, serves, and empowers others and brings value to their lives, then we've lived, in my opinion, a great life. So what the book is essentially is I've taken some of my favorite tweets over the years, not even necessarily the ones that went viral or the most popular ones, but the ones that just resonated with me. And that's at the top of each chapter. And then what I do is I dive deeper into the story behind it, the meaning behind it, where my heart was and what happened, or how it allowed me to help others grow, or how it helped me to grow myself. And then at the end of every chapter, I have my wife's idea, what I call a timeout, to tie into the football or a lot of sports. And it's a self-reflection question, kind of, going off whatever I shared for that particular chapter. How does this apply to you as a reader? How can this help you to become a better husband, father, you name it?
Good stuff. So you talked a little bit about the process, but kind of take us step by step. And you said it was a 2.5-year process, so maybe leave some of the smaller steps out, but talk about how you kind of went from starting the project through this week.
Yeah, it's a great question. So it started off with, once again, just when I finally made the decision to write the book and what the topic would be and how I go about doing it. I just started going back, scrolling through my own Twitter feed, and to be honest, there were certain tweets I put out there. I'm like, what was I thinking? Like, what a clown, what a buffoon. But then there were other ones that I saw that what I started to do was ones that went viral that maybe had, 5,000 retweets or 10,000 retweets. I was like, oh, I should write on this. And I did that, and I found some enjoyment with that. And it was great for me to go back and think, what was the story behind that tweet? And really, where was my heart at that time? Where was the individual and I didn't mention names without any permission, but the individual that may have been referred to in that tweet or story, and just kind of went back and relived those moments and kind of drew upon that and wrote those down. And the greatest part, I think, for me was in writing the book was that timeout part of the book where I sat there and tried to put myself in the place of a potential reader, whether it was someone that a brother or sister that I have, a child, one of my children, or someone that I've coached in the past or taught, or a complete stranger. What could I write as a personal growth or self-reflection question that would really pause or hopefully inspire them to pause, put the book down for a moment, and not just read through a book. I've been guilty of that way too many times in my life, where I read a book and I finish the book and I think that was a good book, but I don't get as much out of it as I should have. And it's not the author's fault. It's me not slowing down enough to saying, wait a minute, how does this apply to my life? And I apologize. I know we've spoken before, Scott. I don't know. I said Paul. Scott, clearly. Scott, I don't know why. And I'm going to mention the Bible, so maybe it was the reference of Paul in the Bible. I don't know if you have a strong faith or not, or if you share that on your podcast. For me, that's everything. And I know, once again, I've read the Bible many, many times, and way too often I read it and I don't get much out of it. And that's right, because I'm just reading because I feel like I should. In those moments that I read it because I feel called to read it and really inspired to read it, it's life-changing, truly. So, and I'm not comparing my book to the Bible by any stretch, but my prayer is that people will read it and really take the time to reflect upon their lives, and it'll inspire them and empower them to continue doing what they're doing, or to maybe make some changes if they feel that's necessary.
Well, and it sounds like as you're thinking about how your writing could inspire or impact somebody else, it's got to have some real personal reflection and personal development for yourself as you're going through that process.
Absolutely. And a good number of I don't even remember what the exact tweet was, but one of the chapters is talking about being a student athlete. And when I dove deeper into that tweet, I thought, all right, why is that important to me? Yes, I'm a teacher. Yes, I'm a coach. But when I started to really think back, it was an experience I had in 7th grade with my parents, where I had a D in one class. And as a 7th grader, I thought football was my life. And I remember my parents sitting me down, and I dive into this. I'll make this very short now, but sitting me down together saying, hey, if you don't get that D up, you're not playing football next year. And my parents, Scott, never gave me empty threats. Like, they followed through with the discipline as they should have. I don't know why at that point in my life, I didn't believe them. And I thought, no way, football is too important to me. They know that. I don't have to worry with this. Well, not only did I not increase my D to a C or a B, it dropped down to an F. And I remember when report cards came out, whatever the year was, heading into my 8th grade year, and my parents sat me down. We got them in the mail. It was one of those, you try to beat your parents to the mailbox and get it first and look at them, see if you can arrange a play date to be out of the house for a few hours. And I remember them sitting me down and saying, you're not playing football next year. And I was devastated, but I wasn't really. I was pretending to be, because I knew that they were just trying to, or I thought they were trying to just really teach me a valuable lesson. And when August rolled around, my dad would get me in the car like he always had, bring me to weigh-ins, and they'd say, hey, I hope you learned your lesson. Well, I didn't play 8th grade football. and hate's a strong word. I thought for probably 4 months I hated my parents. I remember just being miserable. Well, long story short, it was one of the greatest lessons they ever taught me about not only being a student athlete, but how to lead others and being a man or a woman of your word and following through with what you say. I'll never forget that moment. I pray I never forget it, because it truly was transformative for me.
Right. That's awesome. That's awesome. So what advice would you give to a coach, or anyone for that matter, that feels like they have a book in them?
Yeah, great question. Write it. Write it. You know, Scott, for the audience, I'm pretending as I'm talking to them right now, Scott and I were talking about the imposter syndrome, and I jokingly said, I played Division III college football, Plymouth State, absolutely loved it. As I started to write the book, it took me so long, not because it's so profound, but because I kept on doubting, like, who's going to want to I was a Division III college football player. I love where I coach in San Diego now, but I'm a Division IV high school football coach, never went to the NFL. And I look out on social media at men and women that I respect. Inky Johnson comes to mind, who had a tremendous collegiate career and was slated to go in the NFL and had a career-ending and life-altering injury that I think has blessed him now. And he's mentioned more than anything could have ever happened if he had continued playing football. But a lot of those self-doubting thoughts came into my heart and my mind. And then I went back to something, as I shared with you, Scott, that I had read from Wayne Dyer about ego. You know, and for me, those egotistical, those cocky, arrogant coaches, players, individuals, I always thought it was just they thought they were better than others. And the way Wayne Dyer described it was, an ego is anytime we edge God out. So if God puts something on your heart, to answer your question, as far as teachers, coaches, anyone that wants to write a book, if he places that thought on your heart, run with it. Run with it. And I really had the approach with my book that I had or I still have with my tweets. Not proud of this, but when I first got into the Twitter world, I would do it, one of those little selfie videos. And before I would post it, I would think to myself, will this get a lot of retweets? We'll get a lot of likes. Like a 13-year-old school child. I was like, really? Like, how immature is that? And now really what I do is, if God puts it on my heart, I put it out there. And if it resonates with one person, thank God, that's phenomenal. If it resonates with 100, phenomenal. And what that's allowed me to do, getting my ego out of it, or trying to get it out of it, has allowed me just to live more freely and put things out in the world that I believe are going to be a blessing to others, and put the rest in God's hand. Truly just, hey, if this is meant to sell 2 copies, fantastic. If it's meant to sell 200 or 500 or 1,000, it's something that I feel passionate about. And I think if others have that calling, they should just act on it.
That's awesome. You know, and I think clearly following what you see as your calling has really resonated with a lot of people, because, you know, I mean, you talk about the likes and all that kind of stuff, but you've got many dedicated followers like myself that you know, watch everything you put out there, and you're having a great impact. So God's clearly using you for what you need to be doing. You should be proud of that.
That means a lot. I truly do appreciate that.
So how can other coaches or other people connect with you on social media?
Yeah, you know, just like we tell our athletes, you know, don't put fast cleats, 42 or whatever it is. Put your real name so college coaches can find you. It's Coach Kurt Hines, KurtHines, on all the social media platforms. And then I have a website, which is coachkurthines.com. And if anyone is interested in diving into the book, it's now on Amazon. They can just search Call to Empower or Coach Kurt Hines, and it's also on our website.
Well, that's awesome. I appreciate it. I'm going to get off this call and order my book immediately. Super excited about it. Thanks for taking time out with us, and keep doing your work, man. I appreciate it.
You're a blessing, Scott. Thanks for having me on.